A month ago, I did a video about why it is perhaps a good thing that we do not get what we want, and the grave consequences if we defy fate. Of the popular mythos, I believe, it is what if Revan never left the galaxy after the events of Knights of the Old Republic. I did quite a few fanfictions that did have that as an underlying assumption, but it was mostly inconsequential and lighthearted. So in this video, we will explore a more serious scenario, possible reasons why Revan would have never left the galaxy in the first place, and its resultant consequence. In the Revan novel, we get a clearer glimpse of Revan's psyche before he left for the unknown regions. Life was good. He is celebrated as a Republic war hero, having a private domicile on Coruscant with a lovely wife. Relationships with the Jedi Masters were cordial, though it was clear that an active membership in the Order is off the table. But it is a win-win for both parties. The Jedi can go about their own dogmatic ways, and Revan can live happily ever after. However, beyond the surface, Revan has been experiencing nightmares, dreams of a planet on the Outer Rim forested with lightning. This was Dromund Kaas, the seat of power, along the border of the ancient Sith Empire. These dreams were more like flashes of memories of the things he had done, the places he had visited as Dark Lord of the Sith, where he encountered the true Sith lurking in the shadows. The Sith who were responsible for orchestrating the Mandalorian Wars and later the Jedi Civil War. Their goal was to weaken the Republic to the point where they could return in force and take the core worlds in a matter of weeks. Though initially unclear at the time, as Revan retraced his footsteps, it was evident that he had to stop the threat once and for all. But what if this never happened at all? What if the mind wipe that the Jedi Council performed on Revan was so potent and absolute that Revan does not receive these flashbacks? The war was over for a couple of years now. Peace was finally in the air. But as we know in Knights of the Old Republic 2, remnants of Malak's Sith Empire were still somewhat active on the Outer Rim. With Malak dead and Revan clearly on the side of the Jedi, there was no reason why the Sith Triumvirate wouldn't have seized power in the vacuum. Kreia would still retrace Revan's footsteps out of curiosity, and the origins of Nihilus and Cygan were rooted in the ultimate battle of Malachor, which concluded the Mandalorian Wars. Revan's presence in the galaxy, however, would definitely change the events of KOTOR 2 in some unexpected ways. Kreia's fall and betrayal at the hands of her two apprentices would still occur, and so would Mitra Suik's return to the galaxy. I, however, believe that the Jedi would still have a stronger presence than their complete disappearance as we saw in KOTOR 2. The Council may have went into hiding due to the annihilation on Katar, and with their absence, the Republic and the remaining Jedi would turn to Revan once more. A man who had led them through times of crisis, who took decisive action and saved the galaxy from utter collapse. The Exchange, a criminal organization, wouldn't dare to declare an open bounty against Jedi, lest they face the wrath of their blades and Force powers. Malak's Sith, however, would definitely welcome the challenge. Not through open battles, however, but assassinations and unconventional methods, probing into Republic territory to get a sense of its weaknesses. Revan, though no longer the man he was during the Mandalorian Wars, knew all too much about the dangers that a weakened Republic would face. Reinstated as Supreme Commander of the Republic military, he would reorganize and consolidate whatever was left of the exhausted military. Unlike the Mandalorian Wars, he would play a more defensive strategy. Armed convoys of Republic goods continually flow from the core worlds to the Outer Rim. Merchant vessels are retrofitted with whatever defensive capabilities they could arm themselves with. And instead of scorched earth tactics and human wave attacks to oppress and destroy the Sith with absolutism, Revan's goals would be to save as many Republic lives as possible, soldiers and civilians alike. I could envision this scenario leading to some epic battles such as Revan vs Cygan and Nihilus, or perhaps even the Exile and Revan fighting against Kreia. Off the top of my head, This is perhaps a potential line that Kreia would say.
Fools, you disappoint me, Revan. I would not have believed that a man who once defied the Council now stands as their puppet.
To which Revan would probably say something like,
My journey as Dark Lord of the Sith was not to be followed, but to serve as a warning to those curious. You of all people should know that.
But that's another can of worms that I would explore another time. My point is, even though Revan doesn't know the true Sith threat, there would still be a reason for him to take up arms once more. During their final night together, before Revan chose to depart into unknown space, Bastila begged Revan to stay with her, with their unborn son, saying that he had given up enough for the galaxy already, that he deserved to have a break. Revan rejected this notion, saying that if he did not go, there would be no future for the children at all, and Bastila accepted his reasoning, painfully watching him depart. But as Aronix pointed out, it is still a foolish endeavor to venture out into the galaxy with such limited backup.
We don't have time for blind heroics. We need to think this out carefully. Karth has contacts in the Republic military and the Senate. Perhaps if we can bring this up.
And as we've seen many times before, in The Phantom Menace and in The Force Awakens, the Senate will always have its doubters and legislators who resist taking action. More speculations and rumors, they would argue, refusing to funnel resources in what they saw to be Sith guerrillas at best.
These Sith are not like the men who returned with Malak and I. They are responsible for the Mandalorian wars. We don't know what horrors they bring.
We are tired of war. Jedi are supposed to be peacekeepers. But you, Revan, you are a warmonger. What is left to follow Revan will be more of a splinter group fiercely loyal to him. The common folk are exhausted, but a handful are still willing to fight to defend the Republic with Revan.
I know you have suffered greatly, my friends.
Revan remarked.
But all I ask is that you trust me. Trust that I will do what is best for the galaxy with all my power, as I did in the Mandalorian Wars, and as I did against Malak.
With the conclusion of his speech, the Senate roared with a large debate. Many cheered for Revan, but just as many jeered and dismissed him as a madman. Though it was heartwarming that Revan had a huge following nonetheless, there were still some kinks to fix. The Republic military was in no shape for an expedition into the unknown regions after what they did at the Battle of the Star Forge. Building defenses were more crucial, perhaps forming alliances with other races and peoples such as the Mandalorians.
You call this an army? One Mandalorian is worth 10 Republic soldiers.
Canderous would declare. The Outer Rim worlds would be less keen on following Revan. He was, after all, responsible for leaving them to fend for themselves during the Mandalorian Wars, and they were the first to face the wrath of the Sith fleets when they returned. There will be a lot of loose ends to tie out as well, such as the political instability on Onderon, which erupts into a civil war later. To prepare the Republic for an unknown threat on very little verifiable information is an uphill battle. Convincing entire worlds to bear arms alongside former invaders, to put aside their political differences to face a common threat which is not active at the moment, is a radical idea. However, with a central figure in command, tensions between allies eased up as they worked on fortifying their worlds. Mandalorian weapons and craftsmanship bolster planetary defenses, and in the black market, perhaps some who are sympathetic to the Republic could pull in resources of their vast underworld criminal empire to shore up Republic relief efforts on worlds such as Telos. And if you're wondering whether the part about criminals is a stretch, there was literally a Republic droid who took over Nar Shaddaa to help save the Republic. In the end, this scenario would likely be similar to the Resistance era prior to the sequel trilogy, except while Leia faced huge swaths of opposition because of her relationship with Darth Vader, I think that Revan's charisma would still earn him sufficient loyal companions. It would be quite similar to the first scenario, where Revan still has to clean up his own mistakes before fully turning his attention to Vitiate. Okay, remember when I said that it was foolish for Revan to go into the unknown regions even with Republic reinforcements? But what if he did it anyway? Just not in any capacity as the Prodigal Knight, but as Dark Lord of the Sith. In the dark side ending of the original KOTOR game, Revan and Bastila turned the Starforge's power against the Republic fleet after he defeated Malak. This left the core worlds open to conquest. However, we learned in KOTOR 2 that Revan suddenly left the galaxy without crushing the Republic. But given what we know, I think it is more plausible that he chose to finish consolidating his hold on the galaxy before turning his attention to external threat. Utilizing the Starforge to fuel his war machine, and with an apprentice that has the power to turn the course of entire battles, this would be a formidable militaristic power of an empire.
My lord, Coruscant has fallen. At last you can rule supreme and uncontested in this galaxy.
Not so fast, my love. The people of the Republic are strong and stubborn. They would not give in so easily.
It was true. Resistance movements against Revan's new rule began arising as they did in the Imperial Age, but with a few key differences. Unlike, say, the Death Star, that was draining Imperial resources that could be diverted elsewhere, I believe that the use of the Starforge would complement Revan's campaigns far better. Revan's fleets are split into tactical response divisions similar to what Grand Admiral Thrawn envisioned.
My friends, I have given you order while the Republic struggled. Resist no more. Your salvation is nigh.
One of the many things that happens during this timeline is the disappearance of the Sith Triumvirate. Or rather, they will be working under Revan's rules as his enforcers rather than leaders of splintered factions. This brings us to the external threat of Vitiate's Sith Empire. The Rakkadan system, which is the key contributor to Revan's military strength, is far from the core worlds, meaning the Starforge will be in a strategically important yet vulnerable place to defend against an extragalactic threat. But with such a powerful weapons factory, it is likely that Vitiate would be more wary about showing his hand so quickly, instead utilizing other means to undermine Revan's hold over the galaxy. As long-time players of the SWTOR game, many of us are familiar that Vitiate was developing yet another civilization in wild space as well, the Eternal Empire of Na'ku. It would likely not be as technologically advanced as where we see it in the Knights of the Fallen Empire expansion. I do think that it has a sufficient technological advantage that could give it an edge against a Starforge fleet. With this in mind, why not unleash two empires onto the galaxy and see where it goes?
This will be a glorious battle.
In the midst of all this, would only mean more bloodshed and more lives lost. To replenish his losses in men, Revan would turn to the Starforge to create more deadly variants of droids to oppose the Kulan Sky Troopers. But for the sake of sheer practicality, even the tactics that Revan resorted during the Mandalorian Wars would hardly be viable on a strategic scale. It would be quite a stalemate, as each faction brings their own variant of a super weapon, leading to an arms race that lasts many years. They may even race to find lost super weapons across the galaxy. Iokaf, for instance, home of the old Zakulan gods, would be one such battleground that the empires would desperately try to capture. Ilum, for their precious kyber crystals to fuel their super weapons, and so on. But even these worlds have only so many resources to supply a galaxy-wide conflict. As such, I honestly doubt this conflict can last that long with a combination of disgruntled populations and exhausted logistics. Revan's resolve would prove far stronger than what Vitiate anticipated. Conquering the galaxy through conventional means was out of the picture. But let's not forget what Vitiate's true intentions were: to use the scale of death and destruction across the galaxy to fuel his ritualistic power. This was a deeply kept secret, kept hidden even from the highest echelons of the empire that he ruled. I highly doubt Revan would ever caught wind of it.
Our chance to strike is now. The Emperor has gathered his forces above Yavin.
In a moment of pride, Revan thought that it's a final battle which he can decisively defeat Vishit once and for all. But in the end, it's a trap laid out right in front of him, and the galaxy pays the price for his folly. Well, that's it for this video. Do you agree with my idea of how the story would go on if Revan didn't leave the galaxy? Let me know down in the comments. And as always, if you would like to see more things related to Star Wars, The Old Republic, do check out the rest of my channel. Cheers!